For people who are coming directly from India on jobs, on contracts, like on Blue Card or something,
When is the right time that person should invest in his own house?
today you take any good city in Germany and a family of three, husband, wife, and a small kid, you will end up generally easily paying around 1500 as your rent. In Germany, the rents are increasing almost 7 to 8% per year. So in 5 years, your rent is not 1,000 euros, it has increased by 35%. A lot of people spend 5, 6, 10 years and then they still don't have a property.
Property, yes.
In Germany, we are talking about a return of 6%, 7%. I have properties which give me 8%, 9% return.
Hello all, welcome back to Experts Talk with Himansha. Today in our this episode we will be talking about housing. House is a dream of everyone. Everyone wants their own cozy space. So today we have our special guest Anul Gur, who also visited us earlier on real estate investment. He will be giving us some insights about how to own your own space, own cozy house in Germany. So, welcome again to our podcast.
Thank you.
And we are happy to have you again. So, today I want my audience to know more about housing. Like, basically, in Indian community, like when is it a right time to buy or invest in our own house? Because everyone from an Indian background wants to have their own space. And as we know, like India is a more emerging market, and now our educated class of Indians are here settled in abroad in Germany. But many times we are reluctant, should we buy property here or not? So maybe if you can brief us a little bit about when is the right time that person should invest in his own house?
So you see, in Germany, a lot of Indians come as a student, and typically, if I see the curve, generally after finishing studies, you settle in your job. It's usually 3 to 5 years, anywhere in this time frame. So what I see, a lot of Indians, especially who come as students, they start buying houses after 5 years after coming to Germany. For people who are coming directly from India on jobs, on contracts, like on Blue Card or something, you can actually start straight away. Earlier, it was a problem to get loans on Blue Card as well, but now we are getting even 100% financing for our clients on Blue Card. So even if you have less capital, you can start straight away. I see it a little bit also from different perspective. Today, you take any good city in Germany and a family of three, husband, wife, and a small kid, you will end up generally easily paying around 1500 as your rent. This comes to around 18,000 euros a year. This is the money you are simply throwing out of the window. So if you have your own house and you can manage the EMI somewhere in this range, at least you have started saving that money which you just throw out of the window on your own home. So people who can afford and who know they want to live here for midterm, they should not waste time and start straight away.
Okay. So, according to you, every day is a right moment to start.
Every day is a right moment. Actually, the right moment was yesterday, so now it's not too late.
Okay. I think this is also a good start, because many time people come here and keep thinking, okay, we don't want to stay here for a longer term. Should we invest or not? But I was going through one case study where I read that one person has bought an apartment for as soon as he landed in Germany, and when the calculation was like, if he stays in that apartment for 5 years, then the value what he has paid, he will get the return, which means like his stay will be zero cost.
It's free of cost.
Free
exactly.
of cost.
Exactly. That is exactly the case. And what we lot of times do not factor is, in Germany, the rents are increasing almost 7 to 8% per year. So in 5 years, your rent is not 1,000 euros, it has increased by 35%. So you end up paying 1,300, 1,400 euros as rent. So if you factor that over 5, 10 years, it's a lot of money. And we all know the salaries in Germany are not exuberantly high like in United States, where we are earning like 2 lakh, 3 lakh euros or dollars. Every Indian, or let's say a good salary, is something around 70, 80,000 euro or 100,000 euros, where we Indians belongs to. Saving 18,000 euros a year is a lot of money. So It has huge potential also once you enter into real estate to increase your savings. So I would still say start as soon as possible. What you also said, I've seen people wait 3 years and then 5 years, not sure what is happening. Are we going back? I usually recommend do not waste that time, because if you are not staying here, you can always sell the property tax free once you stayed 3 years in the property. So why to waste 18,000 euro multiplied by 3? So that is already we are 54,000 euros that you have thrown out of the window. If you go back to India, sell it. Generally, also what I see is if you are staying 5-6 years in this country, you are not going anywhere. You are staying here. So I know what you're saying. A lot of people spend 5, 6, 10 years and then they still don't have a property.
Property, yes. And I mean, I also have this question often, as we all know, India is an emerging market, and when we thought, okay, if we invest 1 crore in India today, it will be like 2.5 crores in just a span of an year. So how do you relate like investing in India or investing in Germany?
See, both these markets are very different in terms of in their nature itself. So as an investor, if I look at it, the returns in India, what I get are completely different than what I do get here. For example, in India, a rental return, a property of 1 CR, I have an apartment in Noida, which is around 1 CR. I get a rent of 15,000 euro. Then I have to pay property management. So at the end, I'm getting around 10,000 rupees as rent, which is around 1.2% return. In Germany, we are talking about a return of 6%, 7%. I have properties which give me 8%, 9% return. So factor one, ROI. I have much higher ROI in Germany. Now let's talk about the quality, what you are investing in. I have seen apartments in around Delhi. I lived in Mumbai. I've seen apartments in Mumbai as well. We are talking about a 3-bedroom apartment of around 5 CR in a decent society. And the quality when I look at these apartments, it's okay. I mean, of course, they are made by Mahindras or Godrej or whatever, nice society, but apartment quality as such is okay. What I get here, an apartment, a building, its life is easy 200 years. So the quality of construction, the maintenance that happens over the building, the kind of people and the air pollution is not here, water pollution is not here. So looking at the whole picture, I still think Germany is cheaper in terms of real estate compared to India. I am still bullish on German market. In India, what you are saying, of course, capital appreciation happens, but that happens in cycles. So you will not see Indian market doubling your money every year or every 2 years. There comes a moment when suddenly there is a huge capital appreciation in Indian market, but then nothing happens for 5, 6, 7 years. Example recently, I mean, I bought an apartment in 2015 in Noida where my apartment price got doubled, but then for next 8 years, my apartment was on the market for selling and I could not sell it. There were no customers. So during that 8 years, nothing happened. In Germany, if I compare, it's completely different. So market does not double your money. Your money grows by 6%, 7% every year. But market is quite active. If you want to sell your apartment, if your apartment is good, it's in good location, the macroeconomics that we talked about last time, if you have the check boxes, you can sell it in 2 months. So you don't see that cyclical business in real estate in Germany as we see it in India. So very different markets. But yes, India also offers some very specific opportunities. I still invest. I've recently invested in Dholera in Gujarat in a plot. And so you have to pick very carefully and do your research while investing in India.
Okay, yeah, I do understand that India is a fascinating market for investment, but Germany is like more slow and steady.
Germany is slow and steady, much more secure, and you get much more assurance, and the quality of tenants also is far better. A lot of times we hear you rent your apartment in India and after 5 years the apartment is a trash. That generally also does not, it can, but generally does not happen in India. So I have more peace of mind renting in Germany.
Okay. Okay. And maybe like most of the people often have questions when they want to buy their own house, like whether it should be an apartment or their own house. Like, of course, it depends on the family size, whether it's a young couple with a kid, or with parents. So, like, how do you suggest? Because I know it's like one of the personal choice where someone wants their own land and someone wants to stay connected with our neighbors and also more. Familiar in apartments, but still from that standpoint, what could be the best investment for personal house?
So, see, buying a personal house has two aspects. One is the financial aspect, and second is the emotional aspect. Financial aspect, of course, if your pocket allows to spend only 500,000 euros, you cannot go and buy a million euro house because banks will also not finance it. So, first, you need to fix your budget, which is not a difficult thing. Once you know your budget, then you have to look out for options. Can you buy an apartment or can you buy a house? Lot of people, especially Indians, we want to live in a house. You can even afford house in your budget, but then you have to make certain compromises. You cannot buy a house in half a million euro in Munich. You have to go out of the Munich, maybe in the countryside, maybe in Augsburg, maybe in Dachau. So you'll have to compromise on the city then. Uh, House or apartment, once you know what is your financial capability, then is an emotional decision as well. I wanted to give my son the space to play. I don't want any neighbors knocking on my door that we make noise. I want to vacuum my house on a Sunday. I want to cook in my pressure cooker on a Sunday. I don't want any trouble from the neighbors. My parents comes 2 times a year, living for 2 months in my house, and I want to give them the comfort. I want to read a newspaper in my garden. These are emotional things, and I cannot put a price tag to it. So, of course, for me, if I can afford, I will buy a house. Somebody starting new and having not too much money, again, I will say do not wait. Whatever your pocket allows, if it is an apartment, then start with an apartment. And what strategy I usually recommend to Indian community especially is start with an apartment if pocket doesn't allow. We all grow professionally with your salaries. After 2 or 3 years, if you want to live in a house, move into a house. In 2 to 3 years, you have a house and you have an investment property as well, because the apartment you bought earlier, now you can use it for renting. So look for your pocket and then decide what you want to do.
Okay. I think, yes, both house and apartment have their pros and cons. So, I mean, as you mentioned, like twice a year, your parents visit you. So, if when you are in a house, does it has a problem because every time like elderly people has to climb the stairs for the bedrooms, because as a usual structure in Germany we have observed that most of the houses do not have bedrooms on the ground floor.
I understand this problem, and perhaps we will see this as a challenge in few more years. Unfortunately or fortunately, my parents can still manage to climb the stairs, but we also get this question in our mind a lot of times. At least we have a huge living room, and worst case they can stay in living room when they come, and if they are not able to walk or climb the stairs. But I also see, if this point comes that they are not able to climb the stairs, they will perhaps not come to my place or not travel to Germany. They would rather prefer staying in their home because they are not fit enough, they don't have enough strength in their leg. In that stage of life, generally what I'm seeing is parents also do not want to travel. So I will take the situation when it comes.
So now we have already decided on, definitely it's in personal interest, that person wants to go for an house or an apartment. Also, as a starting point, apartments are good point to start for investment. Like it gives you your own space. It's more of an flattened house, I would say, where you do not have to climb stairs. You still get some chance to interact with your neighbors. It do have some limitations of privacy, as you said, vacuum on Sunday, or if you are grilling, you have to take permission from your neighbors.
Right.
So maybe a little bit going on the financial aspect of it, how one can evaluate, like based on what salary scale or how the apartment will cost. Like first we'll talk about apartment, then for house. Like say if I'm earning 40,000 euros a year, then just a rough calculation to see how much my EMI will come, what would be my rental if I go for a rented apartment, in a way so that I can decide, okay, this is the right time, I can go for an apartment or a house.
Right. So basically, the rule of thumb in Germany is banks would finance 100 times of your netto. Meaning, if you are getting 3,000 euros in your bank account as a salary, they are ready to finance up easily up to 3 lakh euro. It can be even more. The rule of thumb is 100 times of your netto. So if you are earning 3,000, 3 lakh is more or less the limit, or you should look around for a house apartment which is around 300,000. There are other factors also. This is just a thumb rule. For example, banks also look at what remains with you after you have paid your rent, your living cost, and generally bank wants that you still have 500 euros in your account per person after all the expenses. So financing is not black and white. You cannot say if I earn 300 euro, I can buy an apartment of 300,000 euros. You might earn 3,000 euros, but if at the end of the month you have no money left, banks will never finance you.
Okay.
So these are two basically rule of thumb how you can evaluate what is my credit limit and what I can afford. Second part of question that you are asking is how to figure out what is my EMI. So there is also a simple calculation. Let's say you are taking a loan of 100,000 euro for sake of simplicity, and interest rate is 3.5%. So EMI always has two components. One is the interest, 3.5%, and one is principal, which is, let's say, 1.5%. So in a year, you have to pay 3.5 plus 1.5, 5% back to the bank on 100,000 euros, which is 5,000 euros a year. Divided by 12, you have your monthly EMI, which is then 400 euros, something around is your EMI. Okay. So that's how you can actually calculate your EMI. Look at interest and the principal, multiply it with the total amount, 100,000, and you know what you have to pay back to the bank in a year. Divided by 12, you know your EMI.
Okay. Are there any like platforms available where a person can calculate their mortgage and to see how much does it cost?
A lot of platforms, more or less every financial websites, even like Emo Scout and all these places, you are able to find out what would be the EMI. But I must say these are not realistic platforms because they will show you an interest rate of 2%, but
it will be just a guesstimate.
It is just a guesstimate. This is not reality because they consider 2% with 80% loan values, or 20% you have to do a down payment. So it depends what permutation combination you are looking at. If you are looking for 100% euro, 100% loan, we are talking about 3.5%. So better, I would say, talk to a financial consultant. They are free of cost in Germany, and they have the network of 400-500 banks in Germany. The service is free. Give them the expose and they will get the best offers for you. This is the easiest approach.
And as you also touched about, like, if you first have to check your pocket, that how much you want to invest, whether it's a house or an apartment. So as we are moving towards more countryside, then the prices are decreasing. So you get a good property in a lesser price. Does interest rate also vary when we move from city to outside of this?
Interest. So location doesn't play that much big role in deciding of the interest rate. But since you have touched the topic, I would like to mention here, especially for Indians, try to avoid countryside. We get tempted to buy on the countryside, but the demography of Germany is changing quite dramatically as well. Around 50% of the people are above or close to rente, around 60-65 years of age. I see every day apartments which are being sold because the people living in these apartments died because of their age. So I would even guess that half of the properties that I see every day are on the market because people died and nobody knows what to do with the property. And imagine now you are living or you have this house in the countryside and you want to sell it. There are no jobs, there are no companies on the countryside. Young people do not want to live there. There are no trams, no schools. Take, for example, a city called Hof. Just Google about this city, Hof. It's on the Czech border. Schools got closed. All the young people, they migrated to cities. Hospitals are getting closed. I mean, small cities and villages generally do not have a future. There are exceptions. Herzogenaurach, for example, is an exception where Adidas is. But generalistically speaking, I would suggest to avoid countryside. Back to your question, it doesn't make any difference if you buy it in terms of interest
But
rate.
sometimes, yes, people love that nature and they want to live on countryside, then it is different. But if you are looking from investment perspective, then it might not be
Right.
a profitable
It might be
investment.
a personal choice,
Yes.
but you should be aware that at the time of selling, it might not be that easy to sell the property. And it might even go down in the prices.
Okay.
See, for example, what happened in Italy. And not just what happened, it is right now happening in Italy as well. Houses are being sold for €1. Nobody wants to live in a village in Italy. There are no schools, there are no buses, there is no municipality. The demographic just changed in Italy. What is happening in Germany? People getting older and older, young people going to cities. So cities still have a life, but there's nobody wants to live in the village in Italy. And something similar I see is happening a little bit and will happen more in German countryside as well.
Okay. And as you also touched about, like now, because the elderly people are no more with us, and that's why there are many properties which are on real estate for reselling. So, what one should look in the apartments when buying a old property? Like, for example, is there proper sunlight, whether there is a balcony, or is there any ratio based on number of people that how many square meters it should be?
So there's when I go and check an apartment, I have a huge list of 25, 30 points that I check before making a decision to buy or not buy. So of course we can do a different podcast on this one. It is a huge topic, but general rule of thumb, let's say two or three macros, if I have to say, variables that are for most important for me. Location. Location, because if I want to sell it, I want to sell it fast. I don't want to wait 6 months, 1 year to sell my property. If your location is good, you will sell it fast. If your location is good, it will rent fast. If your location is good, you will get higher rents. So location for me is the foremost important criteria in when it comes to real estate. Then of course the cut should be clean. Cut means the rooms should be of, let's say, decent size, not that the Kinderzimmer or children room, kids room is 8 square meter, 9 square meter. It's like a bathroom. I the the cut should be clean. Uh, I generally do not prefer to go in high-rise buildings in Germany. High-rise buildings, for example, were made around 60s and 70s for factory workers. So in most of the cases, there are exceptions. In high-rise building, the social class that lives is completely different what we are used to see here in other parts of the city. There are even sometimes ghettos in these high-rise buildings. So I also advise to my clients not to go for very high-rise buildings. They are very attractive because you get cheaper apartments in these buildings, and a lot of Indian people think, ah, it's cheap, let's buy here. But imagine when you again will go at the time of selling, no local person, no German wants to buy this apartment. So
Yeah, I think the culture is quite different because if you are from Mumbai and as high you go, that's the more price you pay. And like listening to you, it's opposite here in Germany.
it's opposite here. A German does not want to surround himself with 200 other families. That's why in German culture, they want to live and have their own space. They like living in villages, have trees around their space. They don't want noise around, too much noise around their space. That's why majority of the population here do not prefer to live in a high-rise building. So never go just because it's cheap. Don't get attracted for an apartment in high-rise building. There are exceptions. I have my apartment in Munich in a high-rise building, but you need to thoroughly check all the aspects when you go for such an investment.
Because as you said, like this high rise apartments or multi story buildings have cheaper price range, and I'm also expecting then the neighbor cost for these apartments will also be less as compared to the house or the small buildings.
Exactly, and that is why they are generally more attractive in the market, because the more apartments you have in the building, the neighbor cost of that building gets distributed in more owners. So on every eigentumor owner in that building, the neighbor cost comes quite down. So, of course, they are attractive for a lot of investors. I know a lot of investors who buy, but for again coming back as from Indian perspective, I do not recommend, because our lives are volatile here in Germany. We always, or most of the times, we think of moving to an English speaking country. We want to change our jobs to get more money or something. And imagine now you are living 500 kilometers away and you want to sell it. How will you do it? And there are no buyers for such kind of apartments in market. Or if you are renting it, how will you manage 500 kilometers away this property? It gets challenging. So it might be attractive from numbers perspective, but these are challenging properties.
Okay. So although it has some challenges, but I think for starting, it's also not that bad. If one can consider to invest in apartments, whether they can just opt not to be like in very high-rise buildings, but if it is a smaller building or a medium size, they can still go for apartment because it will definitely help them in EMIs and less neighbor cost.
It should not be a ghetto.
Okay.
Even if it is attractive, ROI, apartment is good, it should not be a ghetto. That's an absolute no-go. Or what we are seeing as a trend is in these high-rise buildings or buildings with 7, 8 floors, a lot of people who are on asylum, job center is financing them or giving them money to rent apartment in these buildings, and then you buy an apartment and the complete building is full of asylum seekers. So I don't think you would like to live in this building. It's not that these are bad people, but of course they are different social class of people.
So, Anshul, maybe if you can guide us through the whole process, like right from definitely one should know the clear requirement of their own house, and everyone has their own taste, whether it's apartment or a standalone house. But what should be the process right from searching when you know, okay, you need you need a house? What all things one should do? And by when you expect that you will already be an owner?
So let's talk a little bit about the process. So the first step, I think I've discussed this earlier as well. The first step is to know what we say in Hindi. You should know आपकी चादर कितनी बड़ी है, meaning you should know how much your pocket allows. So that you should check with a financier, with a bank or with a financial consultant. What is your affordability? How much loan you can get? It makes no sense, no point. You start looking for houses. It is a huge time invest. It costs you a lot of energy in between your jobs, in between your families. You look for houses and then later you realize you can't afford it. It's a free service that every financial consultant provides you. So the first step would be you should check what is your affordability. Second, of course, once you know your requirements, once you know your pocket, you have a fair idea what will come in this money. Is it one room apartment? Is it 3 room apartment? Or is it a house? So you start looking for it. Let's say you have identified now one apartment. So now basically your timeline starts. Once you have identified, you need roughly around 2 to 3 weeks to go through the financing part. Generally around 4th or 5th week, you go to the notary to make a notary contract. And generally from notary contract, depending on city, depending on time of the year, but let's say 6 weeks, you get the keys of your house. So 6 plus 4, we are talking about 10 to 12 weeks process or 3 months time from finding your apartment till you get the keys. You need 3 months time. Process is, like I said, stepwise is the same. Know your pocket, start looking for apartments on different platforms like Scout or eBay, or go to the banks, or maybe sometimes in your building and so on. Once you identify it, then go to the bank, finalize the loan, go to the notary, make the notary contract, and after 6 weeks you do the handover. So that is
So
the
in this
process.
whole process, like when we for financing to check or different house to find, this is something I understand individual can do. Also, I think for bank we have multiple bank options, and you can go and check where you are getting good interest. But then the process later for notarization or different insurances regarding the house, do we need to like follow a certain process, some company, or this is something individual can do themselves?
So at notary, not, but of course, if you need support in terms of understanding the contract, of course, like we discussed earlier, you can ask your friends, take a professional help, uh, go to a gutachter to read through the document, and then come ask him to accompany you to the notary. That is also possible these days.
Okay.
So generally at notary process, there it is not that much complicated. Once you get the house, I am not a huge insurance fan, but of course there are basic insurances that you need to have. Gebäude insurance or building insurance is a must by law as well, so you need that insurance. What you can add to that insurance is Glasversicherung, generally also relevant for houses, not for apartments, because in a house you have much more windows, you have 3 or 4 floors sometimes, huge windows, doors, and so on. So you, for an extra 40-50 euros, you can add glass insurance to it as well. Then there are a couple of other insurances, for example, house rat insurance and all that stuff. I usually do not recommend, but yeah, it's a matter of choice. What I generally recommend, if you are buying an expensive house, let's say €1 million or even a €500,000 house or apartment, and you are a single earner of the family, God forbid if something happens to this earner of the family, then it's a problem for rest of the family. So in that case, I generally recommend to get a job loss insurance, or ask your insurance agent to provide you an offer for such eventualities. In that case, it is expensive insurance, but makes definitely sense.
Okay, okay, this is good to know. And maybe would you like to give some suggestion or advice to our viewers that whether they should do an investment in some building or an apartment, or they should go for their own house?
So, see, uh, generally, we Indians, we prefer to first buy our own house. And uh, it's not bad to have your own house, but it depends also on various factors. Do you have enough money? Do you really need a house at that point? Or if you are single, maybe you don't need a house or an apartment for yourself. But what I definitely recommend is to start investing in real estate. So maybe you can start with an apartment if your pocket does not allow it. Or depending on your life situation, let's say you are a young family, you will soon have a kid or something, then maybe it makes sense to start looking for a house if you can afford it. Uh, I can tell you a little bit about myself. So I started in real estate around 10 years ago and 13 years ago, but I had a different reason. I was planning with real estate my financial freedom. And I can tell you, after 10 years, today, if I want, I can resign to my well paid job. My apartments give me enough money that I can resign anytime. So, for young investors or for any investor, if you start soon with the right approach, with the right kind of apartments, you can also earn this financial freedom in certain amount of time. For people who are more interested in buying their own house, uh, go for it. You cannot afford a house, then go for an apartment. But start getting your first real estate object in Germany as soon as possible.
So thank you, Anshul. Thank you for such meaningful insights on investment. And we also do recommend our viewers to watch this video and do investment. Thank you.